Good morning and welcome back to another video of language learning tips and good vibes all in one. And I have a beautiful scene I want to share with you. Look at these trees. Oh my God, I love when the tops of the trees start turning red. This one is like really red. And then we kind of come out here. These ones are this gorgeous bright yellow. What a beautiful time of year. So today, I'm very excited to talk to you about a really nice language learning topic that kind of just organically came up in my life in the last couple of weeks, because I'm actually working on a freelance project right now. And for this project, I actually had to take a couple of online classes because I really wanted to go above and beyond. And these are pretty technical subjects, but the classes that I found happened to be in Spanish. And so for the last few weeks, I've been taking several online classes and everything's in Spanish. And this is something I've been doing now for several years. I've been taking all these different animation, drawing, illustration classes online. And quite a lot of those classes have been in Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and a couple in German. And I hadn't even really thought about this as a specific language learning activity, because I'm just doing things that I love, or I'm learning things I want to learn that happen to be in those languages. And so the language is just a tool for me to do that through, and it makes everything so much more fun. That's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. I just think it's such a beautiful thing about language learning. In fact, it's one of my favorite things about language learning. To tell you about that, I think we should go for a walk, because it is just so pretty out there. And as I said in my last video, I really want to enjoy this autumn with all of you, because it's just such a beautiful time of year, and I think we should all really cherish it. Because before you know it, there'll be no leaves on these trees, and that'll be another beautiful season. But yeah, let's go for a walk after I drink this, of course. So this has always been one of my favorite things about language learning as a hobby. It's that we get so much joy from learning a language, and it's such an amazing, incredible journey. But once you reach a certain level in that language, all of a sudden you can start just doing all the other things in your life that you like to do through that language. And one of the magical things about this is that, in my experience, every single thing you do becomes so much more fun and more interesting when you're doing it in a language that you have learned as an adult, right? So if I'm going to be reading a book about woodworking, and if I'm watching a YouTube channel where somebody is sharing their passion for woodworking or teaching me how to build something, and all of that is in Spanish, for example, all of a sudden it's just like so much more exciting, so much more fun. And the same thing goes for even just watching a movie. There were large chapters of my life where almost all the cinema that I watched was in French, for example. And the experience of watching a film in French at that time, I got the enjoyment of watching the film. I got the enjoyment of the story, of the cinematography, all the things that you would normally get from watching a film in your native language. But then there's this multiplication of joy, because it's in French, or it's in Spanish, or it's in Mandarin, or it's in any other language that you might be learning. And every time you understand an entire sentence or an entire scene, or every time you figure something out that you kind of missed, but then you figure out the gaps from context, and then you kind of fill in those gaps, like, all these things are extra. These are additional bits of joy and entertainment that we get from doing the things we already love through languages that we have learned. And I just think that is a wonderful thing about learning languages in general. And so I've wanted to discuss this for a long time on my channel, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it in the context of taking classes online for all these different subjects in all these different languages. And so I've actually brought a couple of examples to show you. This is my bag from the Bristol Coffee Festival last year. And I'm going to show you a couple of books that I discovered because of these online classes. Now, this is just like one example of how when you take classes in different languages, you end up discovering things, right? So in the case of art and illustration and animation, taking classes in Spanish, for example, I have discovered so many amazing animators and illustrators from Latin America, for example. And so then I will kind of dive into their work, and then I just discover their inspirations and people they work with. And it kind of just brings me into this whole new world in that particular thing that I'm doing. And I think it really enriches the experience. In the case of these books, I was taking a class on writing better stories in the context of screenplays and short films. And the class was taught by a Brazilian lady. And so the whole thing was in Brazilian Portuguese. And she talked very fondly about this book, O Mundo de Sofia. And she talked about how she had read this when she was, I think, a teenager, and how much it really shifted her perspective on things. And she really recommended the book. And so I could have bought the book in English, but I just was so much more compelled to try to read it in Portuguese because that's the context in which I learned about this book. The same thing goes for this one. Very small little book called El Arte de Mantener la Calma. The art of maintaining calm, staying calm. And again, I learned about this book in the context of a class I was taking in Spanish, and so I bought it in Spanish. So that's just like another example of the benefits of doing things that you love through the languages you've learned. It's not just that one thing. You often end up discovering other things, and it's this wonderful journey that you cannot predict. You never know what that will lead you to. And you may find yourself completely immersed in the world of crochet in German. You know, you may find yourself following all kinds of YouTubers or vloggers or a bunch of Pinterest boards, and everything's in German. And I think that's such a cool thing, and I think we should really embrace that. So this is definitely more of a intermediate or advanced technique, I guess. I think it's particularly good for maintaining language skills because, to be honest, when I'm doing this, I'm not super consciously studying, right? I'm not consciously taking in a whole bunch of new vocabulary and words. It does happen, but it's a little bit more organic. So I think this is particularly good for just maintaining the skills that you have and deepening them slowly and steadily in a way that I think is really healthy and really interesting and really sustainable. Look at the leaves. Oh, I like this spot. I come here pretty often just to read or eat lunch. But right now, I want to show you something because yesterday was Mid-Autumn Festival, which is one of my favorite sort of Chinese festivals. I came home to find this beautiful display of lanterns. So I just learned yesterday, after seeing this, that this is a traditional activity for Mid-Autumn Festival. The Cantonese word is Chai Dang Mai. And basically it's where you have these lanterns hanging with riddles underneath them. And they have some of them in English, and they also have some in Chinese, which is very, very cool. So I have brought you to one of my favorite little places to enjoy this very specific time of year because look at all the leaves. Now, you might be wondering, what do we do about subtitles? And my answer here, for me personally, is I just prioritize having fun and why I originally came to this place. So if I came here to take a class so I can learn about illustration and the class happens to be in Italian, well, I'm going to prioritize making sure I can enjoy the class and making sure I can still learn what I want to learn in a reasonable time frame. So for me, sometimes that does mean turning off the subtitles and just seeing how I do. Sometimes that means having subtitles in the target language. But a lot of times I do have the subtitles on in English. And so I just do my best to listen. I do my best to certainly make sure I am hearing the Italian in this example, but I don't want the language component to stop me from achieving my goal. Because I think if the activity becomes this very, very tough, difficult language learning practice, then you risk losing the fun and you risk actually taking like 3 months to do a class that should have taken you 5 days, you know? So that's my personal answer. I think you should prioritize having fun, enjoying the process, and the goal that you actually have in doing that activity. I think the language part of it should really just be an extra piece of fun. Unless you just want to challenge yourself, that's also fine. But I just think you should not risk burning yourself out and not actually doing the thing you want to do. But I would love to hear your opinions. Have any of you tried this? Have you taken classes or done things like this in your target languages? And if so, what is your approach? Do you like to use subtitles, or do you like to just go all in and see if you can do the whole thing in your target language? All right, that's the video for today. I really hope you enjoyed the topic and getting this little snapshot of autumn here in London. And of course, the good vibes, the coffee. I mean, what more could you want from a YouTube video? Don't answer that. There's probably a lot, like brevity. But anyway. Hello, everybody. I'm out here collecting leaves. You'll find out why in just a little bit. I've got a pretty nice collection here, but they're mostly green and yellow and a little bit of orange, if you look here. But I really want to get some red ones before I go back inside. Ooh, there's some really nice ones here that are in the process of changing between yellow and red. Look at this one. Wow, this is like so yellow. Okay, I'm back home and I really want to share something quite magical and special with you that I feel will bring some extra positivity to your day. And it might just help you appreciate the season a little bit more, because while I was out, I actually decided to collect some leaves because, you know, I was just thinking, I'm always trying my best to appreciate the present moment, to appreciate each season, everything like that. But right now we're in this really special moment in the year where there's this clear transition. I mean, look at this leaf. I thought this was so beautiful. I mean, look at all these colors ranging from lush, dark greens and these vibrant, more saturated greens to yellows and reds. It's just this really magical moment in time when we can kind of see this whole transition from one season to the next. And I guess I was just thinking about it and I was like, oh my God, I really want to capture this right now, because maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, this will be over. We'll be fully into autumn, you know, where all the leaves are going to be red and yellow and orange and brown. And so I just thought that was a really beautiful thing to observe, and it made me want to create a new entry in my little sketchbook project. So a lot of you have probably seen by now my little sketchbook project. So this is the boat that I did in my YouTube video recently, and then this is my Coca-Cola bottle, and that one, I actually did 2 of them. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this project. It's really helping me to just enjoy creating things more by hand, using these paint pens. And so today I thought to myself, wouldn't it be beautiful if the next project was a bunch of autumn leaves and something to make me remember this moment in time.